We are hearing about GLPs everywhere. Is it a rage? Is it a fad? Is it something that we should be doing? Today, we are going to be talking about microdosing GLPs. Is it a social media scam or what? So, what are our thoughts on this?
I mean, GLPs are probably the biggest, craziest thing in the world of dieting today. They were originally brought to the market for, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. And, most people know semaglutide or Wegovy, which got classed for weight loss, or Mounjaro, or the new one Zepbound, which is the same.
Right.
A lot of people actually, in regards to like microdosing, are talking about Retatrutide, which is not even out on the market yet. So obviously be careful, buyer beware. A lot of it's more research, but Retatrutide is kind of like the latest advancement in the GLPs. There's a lot of kind of truths to the microdosing. I know firsthand, at least from what I've used them or how I've used them in the clinics. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I think it could go both ways. I think social media has put GLPs on the scare factor. I'm not going to lie, I probably was one of them when they first came out. And then now, the more I'm reading about our health, and obviously metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, hormone health, everything that I'm seeing now with the clients that I'm working with, and I'm sure the patients that you're seeing too, the benefits of microdosing, again, let's call it microdosing, the GLPs, is where I think it should be. I think that's what they were designed to do. It's like anything that happens right now. We take something that's supposed to work for one thing and we make it into something so big that it's causing adverse side effects because we're not doing it the right way. And we've talked about this on the other podcast before. So I think that the microdosing of a GLP-1 was designed to obviously, and the reasons that Ozempic and Mounjaro and Wegovy and now the Tirzepatides and semaglutide, all of that's there so that we can have better health, longevity, and improve on those things. Coming firsthand, like I said, I was skeptical, but I see the benefits of the microdosing for sure.
So, I feel like, once again, a lot of times when medications come to the market, Big Pharma has their way to apply, and they were intended for diabetes. So they had it set at a higher dose. And so just so you guys know, microdosing is now becoming a thing.
Yes.
It wasn't set out by Big Pharma or the manufacturers to be able to do it that way. But I think a lot of people are starting to realize the poisons in the portion, like we always talk about with anything that you do, so they were intended for diabetes. They were intended to fix the pancreas. They're intended to improve the B cells in the pancreas, and applied right, amazing. With the right coaching, the right guidance. Right. So I think a lot of the miss, or not the miss, the scare that's out there was from the way they came to the market and how they were used. That was one shot a week, whopping dose, double it after a month, double it after a month, and so on till you get to a big dose. And, these were meant to improve the pancreas and how it works. Some of the side effects, why it works so well for weight loss is it slows down gastric emptying. Right. And so the rate that your food moves through your stomach. Right. But if you take too much, it kind of stops that, or it makes you to where you don't want to eat. And we've talked about on previous episodes is people are taking these whopping doses and they're just not eating. They're losing a crap ton of weight, but they're just basically on a starvation plan.
Absolutely. So, I think the GLP-1 from a social media standpoint, what we're seeing or what I'm seeing is, and I think to what we were just talking about, it's not the substitute for proper nutrition, and it's not the substitute for exercise. Yep. It is the assisted coach. It's what's going to help all of those things actually better your health, improve longevity. I think that that's something that we are seeing too. I know that I had a lot of people that were on them that did have a lot of those horrible side effects that social media is touting right now. And then we're only looking at it from a weight loss standpoint. We're not looking at it from a health standpoint, and how being on something like too much of a good thing is not a good thing. That's exactly what happened here. So, but again, if we kind of pull back and go into this microdosing concept, which is what it was intended to be, I think that people will see better results. They won't see the drawn out faces, the gaunt face, they won't see. Because really what happens is you become, I hate to say this word, but you're a skinny fat because you're losing all of your muscle. And right now for, the age demographic that we're working in and for women that are going through hormonal stages, keeping muscle mass and improving, you don't want sarcopenia. We don't want muscle loss. If anything, we want muscle gain. So anything that's going to keep the muscle on is what we want. So to take something that's going to reduce that, you may be losing weight because you're losing that muscle, but you're actually, it's a disadvantage to your health.
Yep.
So.
Listen, it's unfortunately a lot of people who started with Ozempic or Wegovy or Mounjaro or Zepbound from Big Pharma prescribed, it only comes typically in a pen. And so that's where a lot of their dosing schedule, they couldn't microdose it. And then everyone knows they've been on short lists, and that's what opened up the door for compound pharmacy to make it, to provide the opportunity to be able to adjust the dosing, to adjust to the side effects. If it wasn't for that, I think we'd still have a lot of people losing weight, but we'd have a lot of people kind of putting their metabolism in the gutter.
Oh yeah.
And so the compound versions have kind of opened people's eyes to you don't need to so much take this dose and scale it after a month. And, firsthand, I've seen years ago, with even liraglutide, we've been able to, that's why I've always liked to be able to adjust the dose on the person and see how they respond, because, you could take a whopping dose, you're not going to lose more weight. You might lose from not eating, but you're going to get stuck. And so whereas if you can apply it and be smart about it, apply it to curb your appetite, apply it to help you be satiated, apply it to quiet the food noise, amazing.
Absolutely.
But it's once again poisons in the portion. So you have both sides of the negatives from the application, and then you have now people realizing wow, I could use this and use it as a tool and get better results, less side effects, and ultimately, hopefully put myself in a better spot or position when I'm done.
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of the misinformation behind this. A lot of people don't really understand what the GLP is, and we just talked about what it is. And obviously, a lot of people are hearing all of the negative side effects as opposed to the positives from this. Obviously, we talked about the negative side effects being the nausea, the stomach paralysis people talk about. And then even what I see from a fitness standpoint is I see low energy. They don't have the means to lift weights. They don't have the energy to do the cardio that maybe they need for circulatory health. So it's doing the disservice, like I had said earlier. And I think to everything that we talk about on the show, what is the actual purpose of taking this product? Is it because you have an underlying health issue that we need to work on, which is obviously knowing your numbers, right? Do we need to, because again, you always need a little bit of assistance, or is it because, again, if it's just a quick fix to losing weight, it's not going to happen. So you've got to incorporate, obviously, the nutrition and the fitness angle into this. And I think that with all of these GLPs, we need to make sure that we're obviously still eating right, you still have to reduce processed foods. You still want to eat clean, lean proteins. You still want to increase your fiber. You still want to make sure you're staying hydrated. And then again, your exercises. Maybe you do 3 to 4 days a week of some form of resistance-based combo training, depending on your time and your lifestyle. Maybe you do a couple of days of cardio or, time under tension, Pilates. Yes, my favorite. Those types of things. I think that we can't miss the big picture of health. And it's still nutrition. It's still fitness. And it's still, this is kind of like one of those supplements. It's filling in the gaps to assist your body to do what it needs to perform at its best.
And obviously, you just said it, 3 pillars, right? Sleep, nutrition, physical activity. Once again, it's kind of one of those things you got to you can't look at the GLP as the thing that's going to do it for you. But if you change your mindset before you do it, you're probably one of the best things I've seen ever being in weight loss for as long as I've been in, to give the discipline and the willpower to stick to a plan, but just don't overshoot it.
No pun intended. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, look, I'm not against any of this stuff. I mean, I'll be the first to say that I wasn't sure about it because I was reading all of the fake information about it. go to the right source. I think it's really important. I mean, I know that you're doing a lot of this at Nuviva and your practice as well, and making sure that we're getting the right type of GLP-1, because I'm sure there's probably black market labels because it's expensive for some, and you see the commercials. The commercials have, I guess like, I don't even know, like some of the, I guess like Weight Watchers now has an option for a GLP-1. Are we really getting that? So we want to make sure that we're going to the reputable sources.
Well, that's important. I would say first and foremost, if you're going to put something in your body, make sure you know what it is. But I really do think it just comes down to the detail of applying it to you. And one of the things that, it's sad because I've seen so many people take it the way it's been brought to market. And once you get to a certain dose, your body adapts to it.
Right.
And so you have now these people that have been on, say, semaglutide for X amount of time. They're maxed out. They're getting the pancreatic benefit.
Right.
They're seeing better A1C, but they're not seeing the appetite control and satiation. So now it's like, where do I go next? And you have the next guys down the line, Tirzepatide and soon to be Retatrutide. But I hate to say it, but they're going to be better in some areas, but you're going to lose it. So there's also application to the type of person where they're at that moment in time. Like someone who's sucks and doesn't have the discipline and willpower, semaglutide will probably work great. But if you've already maxed it out, Tirzepatide's going to have a little bit less side effects, but it's going to have a little bit less appetite control. And then come here soon, Retatrutide, has the added glucagon. It's going to be a lot more smoother, a lot more cleaner. And I'd say someone who's a little bit more fit, someone who's already on top of their food, I think it's a great adjunct to what they're already doing. Most people who are overweight are already insulin resistant. Correct. So it's a great way to, one diet will do it for you faster than anything.
Right.
But, this can definitely speed it up drastically. But then you have the person, like I like it from a longevity standpoint. And I'm not telling everybody to run out there and get a GLP-1, 2, or 3. No. And I kind of say GLP-1 sema, GLP-2 Tirzepatide, GLP-3 Retatrutide, because it has other components, either 1 or 2 or 3 components. But, it has a ton of health benefits. And that's where, I think a lot of people are misinformed and don't know. They're either scared or they're all for it. And it's like, if we could get our blood sugar controlled, whether you do it through diet, that uncontrolled sugar feeds a lot of issues, a lot of inflammation, disease process, which we've talked about. And that's why you're seeing a lot of studies come back saying, wow, it's helping with cardiovascular, less plaque deposition, better cholesterol levels.
Yeah.
One from eating better, but the pancreas working and doing what it should do. Right. And I'm pretty open. I take it. I do take low dose Tirzepatide for the benefits, but my dose at a microdose 3 times a week is less than big pharma initial start dose.
Right.
And so, just if you're thinking about using something like that, one, do your research, make sure you're physically fit. I just don't, once again, run out there and go start buying it. There are a couple, situations that you got to be careful of. If you have pancreatitis or a history of pancreatitis, probably shouldn't be on it. If you have any rare, medullary thyroid cancer, definitely make sure you don't go taking it. So being screened for it, just don't go buying it offline and just letting it rip. But I do like it. The application.
I agree. And I think that you just said it again. Also consulting, obviously, with a physician, making sure, because again, we want to make sure that we know where we're getting our stuff from. And I agree. And I don't think a lot of people even know that there's a GLP-1, 2, or 3. We just only know the one, and we only know a certain brand. And I think we only know it for its weight loss purposes. And I will jump on your wagon because I personally, because I have done all of my fitness, I do my nutrition, and I am a believer that people do need something to assist. So again, if you're in this microdose, phase like we're talking about, and you're at a really, really tiny, and I obviously most of what I do is same thing, longevity. I want to be able to, function and perform the way that my body needs to. And, I've been doing so much reading, and I've been helping so many people with this metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance and hormones, that I see how with the program I put them on, with just this little micro dosing, they feel so much better. And it's really important to know where you're getting it from, to have the program, put the program together. We talk about this planning and program. The program's everything. It's putting that into a well-balanced, program for your lifestyle. So I think that we need to, really kind of focus on that. But Anything else that we are missing to inform our fabulous audience
I mean,
about
I would
GLPs?
tell you, as of recent, and I probably get 1 to 5 calls a day or text messages on Retatrutide, which is not on the market.
Yeah.
You could get it through research. You could get it through some of these sites online. It's not available through pharmacy yet.
Yeah.
So, I just be cautious if you're going that route, because I just see people see the hype, and unfortunately, a lot of influencers are pushing it, because if you really look deep, and some of the ones I've seen pushing it as late, they have some way that they're benefiting monetarily from some of these research sites to be able to, they're going to promote that one, especially with semaglutide, Tirzepatide, which is kind of patents controlled right now. I think it's like their way to kind of run freely right now and be able, so just do your research before and make sure, like, whoever's pushing it, get your information, but talk to somebody who really knows, because every day, and I'm just like, it looks great. It's going to be coming to the market. I think it has a person, place, and time, but just make sure that you know what you're getting and what you're putting in your body, because that's probably the thing for me I get worried about, because it's like everyone's so quick to hear, see something on Instagram or TikTok, and now next they want it. But I do like the world is getting smart with a lot of things, and microdose, and even medicine with certain medications, smaller amounts to get the good out of it and take away the bad.
Absolutely.
It's like nothing has to be taken at big pharma recommended doses.
Look, I'm a big fan of microdosing. I think that what happens is when we're mega dosing and we get these side effects, what happens? We've got to take more medication to offset what's going on in our body from overdoing what we know isn't right. But again, they want a quick fix solution to a problem that, that needs to just be over time thought about, planned, and gone through. And I think that, like what you were saying, I think with social media, we're hearing the negative of the GLP, and we're only hearing, like we talked about, the weight loss. We're not looking at the overall big health picture as to why these things were developed. And like you said, it was developed for the glucose intake. I wish that was around when my grandfather, who is type 1 diabetic, was here. Obviously it's not. But again, knowing our research, and look, guys, social media is going to tie you in no matter what. So you've got to be your own advocate. You got to be your own doctor. You've got to do your own research. You've got to ask questions, and you've got to be smart with what you're putting into your body, because it's just,
and you just hit something that's like, I'm so passionate about, as far as, we live in a world where information travels quick, and people are pushing their way, their diet, their supplement, their whatever.
Yes.
And it's so blatant out there where, like, even if you want to talk peptides, which, like I said, I've been in that space since 2005. There's a ton of peptides out there. There's not all of them work like people taught them out to. So just look at what it is, how it works, and then do they have an ulterior motive for what they're doing?
Absolutely.
So,
I agree. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, the big thing, I think, but there are potential negatives that come up, with a lot of the GLPs. A lot of it has to do with dosing. So just making sure that you start low, you start slow, and you've learned to adjust to yourself. I think that's the secret to success with the GLPs.
I agree.
And like you said, get a foundation first before you even consider diving down that rabbit hole.
I agree 100%. Cool. So obviously, all right, so that covers our GLPs. So, I would say it's definitely, I think GLPs are a plus. I think they've got to be used right. I think that microdosing is the way to go almost with anything in the health world. Start small and then see where you feel, because everybody's body is different, right?
Well, and I'll tell you firsthand, I've seen people come in that can't even tolerate even close to a start dose. And it's like, but you could scale it back to even lower, and not for nothing. If you're on one and you're able to adjust your dose, you're going to probably save money and a lot of side effects.
Oh my God, for sure. Absolutely. And again, we can't miss the pillars. If you're not getting proper sleep, if you're not getting hydration, if you're not getting movement, this is just a crutch.
Yep.
So, because we want to make sure that anything that we're doing is going to be for a long-term effect, not for a short-term fix. So, and obviously we always want to consult with our doctor, do our research, and, obviously, hopefully we're able to give our readers.
Because if you don't, either you'll pay now or
you're going to pay later. Yeah. Health is wealth. So obviously that is exactly right. So do all the, look, no one said that health and nutrition and everything that we're talking about is easy, but you really need to know what it is that you want to do. I think that there's a lot of great influencers that are fun to watch on social media, but honestly, like, I mean, look, you and I have been doing this field for years.
Yeah, 2 decades.
You know, it's exactly right. And we've got people that are on social media that have been doing it just because it worked for them and they know how to use a camera. So pick and choose who you watch and ask questions. And hopefully we were able to give people their information.
I always say, run your own race.
That's right. Run your own race. And maybe be a little bit of the tortoise and not the hare when it comes to this stuff, because obviously this is a lifestyle change. That's what it's all about. And, you know, we want to live nice, long, healthy lives. So I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think we gave everyone what they need.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you guys have questions or want something a little more elaborated, you know, drop it in the comments.
Yeah,
you know, we'll
drop
be
it,
glad
for
to
sure.
put some information in there and, you know, try to help you out.
yeah. And if they need any information, obviously they can contact you over at Nuviva. You want to do any nutrition work. You know, like I said, I work with a bunch of those.
We don't try to plug ourselves. Like, I think Fran and I are of like mind. You know, it's like, I just want to put the information out there, educate the population. I know you're 100% the same way, and just ultimately see you end up in the best spot possible. You know, just for our nation, our families, our kids, you know, just really try to be smart about your health.
All right, guys, it was awesome to have this conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will be happy to answer any of your questions. Let's remember microdosing our GLP-1s, and we will talk to you all later. Bye.